And there are white racists all over
Folks don't
the
like
state
me for keeping it real,
of
but the
Tennessee
realness help us grow.
waiting for you at the railroad station. They have promised to lynch you at the first sign of you being back in Memphis.
And you can park it in the grass too.
So Queen Mother would not come back to
You can park it in the
Memphis
grass too.
for more than 20 years
My man parked over there in the grass
because of that threat on her life. Queen Mother Ida B. Wells would have went down in history as the greatest black leader of that time, had Frederick Douglass not still been amongst us. No other black woman in American history has come so close to being the preeminent leader of our race, except Queen Mother Ida B. Wells.
I ain't gonna block your queen.
So whenever I come to Memphis, I always go over there to where her office once stood, because that was one brave, one bold, one unapologetically African black woman. And she had the spirit that we need to have today. I mean, think about it now.
Black power!
There were no rights to protect African life.
Right.
And this black woman who lost both of her parents early in life assumed the responsibility of raising her siblings. One of her siblings was developmentally deficient. And while taking care of her siblings, she managed to pass the test to become a teacher in Memphis, Tennessee schools, and became one of the best teachers we've ever had in Memphis. And then she heard about the lynching of a black man that she knew. And this black woman, no more than about 5'2", no more than about 140 pounds soaking wet, decided, without no security behind her, to report and investigate and expose every lynching she heard of. Not just in Tennessee, but she went to Alabama, she went to Mississippi, she went all over the South investigating and reporting on the lynchings of black men. And she was so bold to record the names of the people responsible for the lynchings. Queen Mother Ida B. Wells, there will only be one of her. And we may never ever see the likes of that type of black warrior feminine energy again unless we make them. And when I say make them, I want to be very clear that the black community of Tennessee, from Knoxville to Nashville, from Chattanooga to Memphis, if we don't assume the responsibility of educating our own children, there will be no future for black children in the United States. We have to be honest, Memphis, here today. On this day where we commemorate the last black leader to give us a serious, comprehensive program of racial progress, I'm talking about the good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's right, that's right.
And around this time, today, 55 years ago, he stumbled into the Mason Temple here in Memphis. Dr. King wasn't scheduled to speak that night, but due to the overflow of love and support, Black Memphis came out in the rain and said, "We ready for change now." Black Memphis came out in the rain and they said, "We're ready to redo the sanitation workers march right now." Black Memphis came out in the rain and they made up their mind that they were no longer going to be second-class citizens. And so when Dr. King showed up, he didn't know, or maybe he did know, that it would be the last speech he ever gave. And we know the story. The next day, he walked out onto the balcony. Dr. King was never supposed to walk out onto that balcony. J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI had planned for Dr. King to be shot in the passenger seat as he drove to his evening dinner. But because he walked out onto the balcony, the assassin, who was a white Memphis Police Department officer, couldn't resist the opportunity to take the kill shot. And across the way, where you've been lied to and told James Earl Ray was sitting and hiding, it wasn't James Earl Ray who was across the street. It was the Green Berets of the U.S. Army that were across the street. They were the backup killers for Dr. King.
Speak the truth.
And logistical support for the Dr. King assassination was provided by the Tennessee Ku Klux Klan, the Memphis Police Department, and the Memphis Fire Department. I bring that up to say that Dr. King, a man of peace, because he wanted black people to experience a justice so long denied by the politicians of this country, he had to die. Malcolm had to die. Medgar Evers had to die. Fred Hampton had to die. George and Jonathan Jackson had to die, not because they had a dream to oppress anyone, but in the United States of America, a country boiling with the hypocrisy of racism,
Okay, I get it. No way.
wanting to be equal is a crime. Wanting to be free is a crime. Wanting due process of law is a crime. So as we stand here tonight, we're not just here to memorialize Dr. King, although that's a big piece of it. We're not just here to memorialize Ida B. Wells, but that's a big piece of it. The question we got to ask ourselves, a very serious question that I don't think black people think on enough, and I don't think we really ponder enough. And that question I ask you tonight, Black Memphis, do you really want to be free? Because we talk about freedom, but I don't really see us doing the things that are necessary to achieve freedom. From a psychological standpoint, what I feel is that so many of us don't want a political freedom or an economic freedom or a cultural freedom. What we want is the freedom to enjoy white people's society.
Tell them about it. Make it plain and clear. Make it plain and clear, brother.
I believe that when we protest, I believe that when we rebel, I believe that when we march, I believe that when we vote, I don't think we do it because we want to be free. I think we do it because we want a better existence under white supremacy. If I'm wrong, why do educated black men marry outside the community more than the men of every other race put together? If I'm wrong, why do educated black men and women run to the suburbs the minute they get a halfway decent paying job? If I'm wrong, why do we stick black children in white private schools instead of building for them their own schools? If I'm wrong, why is there not a single city in America, black city, that boasts a Black Wall Street?
Tell them about it, brother.
We are 50 million strong, spread across 50 states. That's 1 million Africans per state, and nowhere in this country can I find a black community. Not in Memphis, not in Houston, not in Baltimore, not in Brooklyn, not in Boston, not in Philly, not in Detroit, not in Milwaukee, not in Little Rock, not in Chicago, not in Oakland, not in Phoenix. Nowhere in this country do we own our own school and our own bank and our own supermarket and our own hospital and our own manufacturing and distribution system. Why not? Because we comfortable being slaves. Let's just be honest.
They don't like the truth. It hurts.
You think being in America is a privilege, although you built America. Let's be honest.
The truth hurt them.
$2 trillion is what we waste in America every year. $2 trillion. $30 billion on hair and weaves.
Come on, tell the
$2
truth.
billion on Air
Break
Jordan.
it down.
$20 million on children's cologne. $800 million on chicken, turkey, beef, and pork. $3 billion on video games. And to my black parents in the building, I'm trying to understand why your son or daughter has a video game unit in their home and they can't even read on grade level. Help me understand.
Oh, that hurt
Your son or daughter got a tablet or an iPhone and they can't even count on their grade level. Help me understand.
That hurt right there.
Why your son or daughter walking around with Louis Vuitton and Balenciaga and Gucci and Ed Jordan and they can barely write their damn names. Help me understand how looking good is more important than doing good. Help me understand how half the black boys in America can't read on their grade level, but I don't see no state of emergency in black America. All this special education, all of these reading disabilities, all of these math disabilities, all of this ADHD, all of this conduct disorder, and for what? Your child don't have a reading disability. He has a lazy disability.
What you said? Speak on it.
Your daughter don't have a math disability. She has a I don't care to learn how to do math disability. See, in the black community, we let our children grow up thinking they're going to become multi-million-dollar entertainers. And this dream of being a multi-million-dollar entertainer so colonizes the mind of black youth that they quit their academic pursuits. And they do this with the full permission of their black parents. And in the black community, we do not honor the children who are academically elite. When is the last time we had a banquet to celebrate the academically elite black children?
Tell them.
We'll celebrate a basketball player who might not even be graduating. We'll celebrate a football player who might not even go to school anymore. Parents, I need you to understand something. Because you are responsible for raising the next generation of African children who are going to fix this problem. And you need to understand that your most important job, the most important job of a black parent in these United States is to teach your child discipline.
Whoa.
And what is Dr. Umar's definition of discipline? It's the ability to do what you don't want to do when it has to be done, whether you like it or not. If your son don't have that, I can tell you now, there'll be a jail cell for him in a Memphis prison. If your daughter don't have that, I can tell you now, there'll be a homeless shelter for her somewhere in Memphis.
And her baby.
If you are raising children who don't have the ability to delay gratification in order to do what they got to do, they'll never be able to do what they want to do. Brothers and sisters, I look over at that red, black, and green flag over there.
Black Panther.
The flag of the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey.
That's the Black Panther.
And wherever I go, I see that red, black, and green flag.
That's the Black Panther.
But to be honest with you, I think we have disgraced
that's the Black
red,
Panther.
black, and
That's the
green
one
flag.
at AG now.
Because we haven't done anything at all
chapter.
to make the black community a self-sustaining institution. We ain't growing our own food on the level we should, although we got some black farmers. We ain't teaching our children how to make their own clothing. We're not teaching them how to prepare their own meals. We're raising a whole generation of black children who are spoiled and lazy. And I'm trying to understand, in a country as racist as America, what good is it to spoil a child? If Malcolm X was right, and I believe L. Hodge told the truth, when he said if you're black, you got to be half as good, you got to be twice as good to get half as much. And you raising a lazy little girl. You raising a lazy little boy. Do you not know one day you're going to leave this earth? What will your son be able to do now with you gone? My single black mothers, I love you to death. But I need some of you to do a better job with raising your sons, because I'm seeing black mothers spoil their sons and raise their daughters. Train their girls and love their boys. Your son is not your husband. Your son is your child.
Tell them
But
about
the problem with some homes is when there's no man in the house, the son becomes the emotional support for his mother. And just as a mother punishes a son, the son can now punish the mother and withhold emotional support from you. Do not let your children ever think they are your equal.
Ooh, Lord, have mercy. The truth hurts.
Black fathers,
Repeat that.
stop trying to relive your athletic dreams through your sons. If you didn't make it into the NBA, that's your business. If you didn't make it to the NFL, that's your business. You have no right to force your son into athletics just because you're trying to get a second chance at a failed dream. Don't ruin his life trying to relive your own. And if it was up to me, there would be no NFL or NBA
That's right.
until black men learn how to marry black women. Because all due respect, those brothers who play in this stadium behind me, and I love them all,
FedEx.
when they go home, they don't go home to black women. They go home to women who look anything other than black. And my black women, I'm going to hold you a little bit accountable for this, because most of our sons are being raised by their mothers. So if you are raising a black boy, and when your son becomes 18 and he only wants to date white girls, I have to ask you, what were the lessons taught inside your home? No way under heaven should a black boy think it's okay to date a white woman being raised by a black woman. We got to rethink that. We got to rethink that. Brothers and sisters, I am a Pan-Africanist. I do not teach hatred. I want the white people to get whatever God has in store for them. And I want the red people to get whatever God has in store for them. And I want the yellow people to get whatever God has in store for them. And I want the brown people to get whatever God has in store for them. But my responsibility is my own race. My responsibility is my own people. My priority is the future of African people. And I don't consider myself to be a bigot when I say that I believe God Almighty intended for black people to rule this planet. I absolutely believe that there will never be justice on the planet. There will never be righteousness on this planet. There will never be equality on earth until the black man and woman return to their throne of glory. We are the solution. Not the nuclear weapon, not Brexit, not BRICS, not the G8, not the World Bank, not the Federal Reserve, not the IMF, not the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, or the Bilderbergs. The solution to world order is African people returning to their God-given glory. That's the solution, brothers and sisters. I mean, let's look at the details now. God put us on earth all by ourselves before he evolved any other human being from our DNA. If we don't leave Africa, you never get a brown man. If we don't leave Africa, you never get a red man. If we don't leave Africa, you never get a yellow man. If we don't leave Africa, you never get a white man. We're the oldest people, the genetically strongest people. And then on top of all that, God Almighty had the wisdom to put under our feet in Africa the most minerally rich piece of land in the world. You can't tell me that we were not blessed. You cannot tell me that we were not chosen. You cannot tell me that God did not intend for us to ever fall off that throne. Our job is to get back up on the throne. Black women, we can't get back up on the throne with you imitating white women beauty standards. Black men, we can't get back on the throne with you marrying outside of your race. Some of you are Christians, and if you study the Bible, you see very clearly that God told those who were chosen never to mix their seed with those who were not chosen. So if you're really a Christian, you have to be a Pan-Africanist as well, because God is a Pan-Africanist. When we say Pan-Africanism, what are we saying? We're saying that all African people in the world, whether they in Zululand, whether they in Nigeria speaking Yoruba, whether they are in Kenya of the Maasai, whether they are in Puerto Rico, African Puerto Rico, speaking Spanish, or whether they're in Haiti, speaking French, or whether they're in Memphis, speaking Ebonics, we are one race.
Ebonics.
We are
brother
one people.
said Ebonics.
We are one family.
The brother said
we might
Ebonics.
be Christian, we might be Muslim, we might be Seventh-day Adventist, we might be a Jehovah's Witness, we might be a Hebrew, but we are one race, one family, one people. We may have straight hair, kinky hair, curly hair. We might have black hair or brown hair, and in some cases a natural blonde hair, but we are one race. We may pledge this flag or pledge that flag or live under this flag, but we are one race. Our problem is we have put religion before race too long. Our problem is we have put fraternity and sorority before race too long. Our problem is we have put a loyalty to an American flag that has never been loyal to us in front of our best interests too long. The time has come, Memphis, Tennessee. The time has come, Nashville. The time has come, Chattanooga, that we have to put black people's issues first. And in order to do that, we have to stop speaking of other people's issues. When you open your mouth, you are representing black people alone. I am sick and tired of black people pulling into a conversation about black justice the issues of brown people, who never pull black issues into their conversation. You pull in issues of yellow people, who never pull issues of black people into their conversation. You pull issues of red and white. For what? Name me a people who have ever stood by black people. Name me a group who has ever stood by us in our fight. I am not anti-immigrant at all, but I am anti-immigrant bigotry. And many of these immigrants who come to America, not my African brothers and sisters, I'm speaking of non-African immigrants, they don't come here to stand by you. They come here to replace you. One of the reasons President Joe Biden wants to fast-track 5 million immigrants to American citizenship is he wants to have more immigrants he can depend on for Democratic votes so they no longer have to cater to the issues of black folks. Brothers and sisters, the immigrants are here to replace you. I did not say disrespect them. I did not say antagonize them. I simply want you to understand, overstand, and understand that the black man has no friends. And you don't need no friends. The only people we need are one another. But until we hate racism more
then we hate each other. Say it again.
Will change.
Say that one more time, King.
We have a bad habit in the black community of only wanting to outdo black people.
That's right.
You never want to outdo the white power structure. You never want to outdo the European Jewish power structure. You never try to outdo the Chinese power structure. You only want to be the head nigger in charge. And that HNIC syndrome, that HNIC disease, is an artifact of post-traumatic slavery disorder. And let me tell you where it comes from. See, in order to understand the HNIC crisis in the black community, why are we the only people who believe only one black person can make it at a time? Why are we the only people who believe if a black woman opens her own business, no other black woman can? If a black man succeeds in his dream, no other black man can. If your child gets a full scholarship to college, no other black child can. Where did we come up with this idea that only one Negro could make it and all other must fail? It comes from the plantation. Back on the plantations of Tennessee, and back on the plantations of South Carolina, and back on the plantations of Kentucky, they had manumission laws that only allow you to free a few slaves at a time. And those slaves can only be freed by sabotaging and informing on other slaves. And so what happened on the plantation was we learned two things. Number one, you can only make it by sabotaging other black people. Number two, if you make it, you got to be the only one to do so. And that mindset, that HNIC crab in a bucket mindset is still with us now, 157 years after emancipation. They might have took the chains off your body, but they never took the chains off your brain. And until we achieve psychological emancipation, until we achieve intellectual emancipation, until we achieve spiritual emancipation, we will never be free. Brothers and sisters, as Pan-Africanists, we believe all black people are one people. No matter where we are in the world, we are but one. Don't focus on where the slave ship brought you. Focus on where the slave ship came from. Brothers and sisters, we believe that as African people, everything we must do must be done alone, by ourselves, without any non-African money and without any non-African participation. Why? What's wrong with having a couple of liberal whites help us out? What's wrong with having a couple liberal Jews help us out? What's wrong with having a couple liberal Mexicans and Latinos help us out? What's wrong with a few benevolent Chinese lending their hand to help black people get their act together? The reason you have to refuse it, it's not because they may be insincere. The reason you have to refuse outside help, outside money, and outside support is because black people have to be convinced that you can win by your damn self. You got to learn how to walk alone, or you will never learn how to walk at all. We have been depending on the white breasts for too long. Every time we have a problem, we look to the government to solve it. We have to make up our mind. Is the U.S. government a problem, or is it our solution? Because it can't be both.
Bring that.
It can't be both. Why is a $2 trillion people begging the government to solve its problems is beyond me. But I'll tell you where it comes from. It comes from the infantilism of black consciousness. It comes from a mindset of a child.
Thank you, baby.
Children don't think long term about their futures because their parents are responsible for doing that. Children don't pay bills. Their parents are responsible for that. Children don't think of saving their money to take care of responsibilities because it's their parents' job to do that. A child gets money and they spend it on whatever they want. That's exactly what you do in Memphis. Just like a child. You don't get your paycheck and say, let's sit down and let's buy a building and open up a laundromat and put some of these young children to work so they ain't got to rob and steal and kill. You don't think like that. When you get your paycheck, after you pay your bills, you don't take your disposable income and say, who else wants to join me for a sit down on how we going to open up Memphis's first black independent school of this decade. You don't say, how are we going to open up our own movie theater, our own shopping plaza, our own credit union, our own bank. You don't think about doing for yourself. You are comfortable letting white Tennessee dictate your life. And when they don't make decisions that are in your best interest, just like a child, you have a temper tantrum. And after you have a temper tantrum, you go right back to your dysfunctional behavior. Listen to me, Tennessee. We are different from every other race in this country on three main areas. Number one, we do not use our money to solve our problems. Black people will use their vote to solve their problems. You will use your protest to solve your problems. You will use your prayer to try to solve your problems. But but we never collectively as a community use our money to solve our problems. How you going to catch up? How you going to build your own institutions? How you going to safeguard your children's future? How you going to create jobs to stop the crime in Memphis if you don't start using your money to finance your liberation? Second reason you're different, you're the only people in America who will not organize with your own race if they don't worship God the way that you do. My mother is a Christian. I have no issues with Christianity. I have a tattoo of Jesus Christ on my left shoulder. The black one, that is. Because see, in Memphis, Tennessee, we got two Jesuses. We got a black one and we got a white one. We got a Jesus Christ and we have a Jesus cracker. Some of y'all pray to Jesus Christ. Some of y'all pray to Jesus cracker. Jesus Christ was a blue, black, purple man born in a cave in Ethiopia. Jesus cracker looks like Michael Bolton. Jesus Christ was hanged from a tree. Jesus cracker was hung from a cross. Jesus Christ was a blue, black, purple African kissed of the sun. Jesus cracker is a deity that looks like your enemy. And one of the reasons black people don't get their prayers answered is because you are praying to God through the medium of your enemy's complexion. How can God answer a prayer? How can God answer a prayer when you come to God through the slave master? How can you get your prayers answered? Some of you right here, right now, got a white Jesus in your house. Don't lie.
Not me.
You won't get rid of it because you say it's been in your family for 8 generations.
Yeah, that's true. I got one.
Grandma gave it to you from the plantation.
I just thought about it. I do. I got my.
Well, you tell Grandma we're going to have a ritualistic assassination of this picture.
I inherited her house.
When you go home tonight, take every white image in your house and burn it. Not because you hate white people, but in order to restore self-respect to African people, you cannot worship the enemies of another race.
I'm going to figure that out. I'm going to get somebody.
And don't put it in the trash.
I never thought about that.
Because if you put a picture of Jesus Christ in the trash in Tennessee, another Negro will come along, take it out the trash, and put it back on their wall. You got to burn it. That's how much we in love with blue eyes. That's how much we in love with green eyes. That's how much we in love with pale skin. I just learned the other day.
He losing y'all now. You talking about Jesus. I see y'all falling off. I see y'all
every year across the world.
Y'all love that white man.
Yourself of your melanin because you don't understand the universal significance of your melanin. This is not color. This is power. This is energy. This is your birthright. You don't kill your complexion for your enemy. But we still got grandmothers in Tennessee. When a grandbaby come home from the hospital, y'all still looking behind their ear to see how dark they're gonna get. We still got aunties and uncles in Tennessee. When they want to spend some time with their niece and nephew, you still going to the lightest child. Or we have the opposite situation, where you have a dark-skinned auntie, uncle, blue, black, purple, beautiful grandmother or grandfather who been so ridiculed over their skin color that they reject the lighter-skinned children in the family. So we got light-skin supremacy and dark-skin supremacy, and both of them are the children of white supremacy. Get rid of the isms. We don't have no time for isms. America is trying to bury the black man in one. They're trying to do it locally and they're trying to do it globally. You got to teach your child who they are. Imitation is death. And why would the oldest people in the world imitate the youngest people in the world? It makes absolutely no sense at all.
What you said.
We got 5 major problems that got to be solved in order for us to get back up on the throne. And by the way, nobody's getting on the throne with a white wife. Nobody's getting on the throne with a red wife. Nobody's getting on the throne with a yellow wife. Nobody's getting on the throne with a brown wife. All respect to those people. But black men, we have disgraced our race by constantly looking for the hand of another man's daughter to build family with. If the black woman ain't good enough for you, you ain't good enough to be in our community no more. Pack your bags and get the hell
out. Tell him.
You tell me you don't see color. Love don't know no color. Well, if love don't know no color, why is it we can't find any broke black men married to rich white women if love don't know no color?
They don't want their broke asses.
See, women, on average, will outlive men. We're physically superior, but they're biologically superior. And when you die, Kobe Bryant, when you die, Marvis Marvelyn Hagler, and you leave a large estate to a non-black woman, you have just robbed your community of necessary resources. All due respect to Vanessa Bryant, but she ain't thinking about using any of Kobe Bryant's black money to help the black community. Stop robbing us to give to a people who have already taken too much. I ain't got no issue with the snow bunny. I got an issue with the snow bunny taking my damn money out of my community.
Say it, brother, say it.
We got to fight miseducation. I want every parent in here to listen up. When I come back to Tennessee, I want to have a meeting to organize statewide the Tennessee National Independent Black Parents Association to fight for justice in the schools until we have our own. There's going to be 7 committees of the Tennessee National Independent Black Parent Association. Committee number 1, special education. I need all y'all to hear me well who have children in special ed. I want you to hear me very well. I want to quote some federal law that I know you don't know, because if you knew it, you wouldn't be putting your children in special ed as quickly as you are. Number 1.
Listen.
A child can only qualify for special education services in the United States of America if they have 2 things. I'm giving you the law. And I'll probably have to come back to Tennessee and do my black parent boot camp training. But let me give you this. Your child must have a disability, and the disability must affect learning in the regular class. Let me say this again. Your child must have a disability. That's the easy part, because white folks will give you any label you're looking for, right? But just because you have a disability, you do not qualify for special ed. Let me say that again. Just because you're autistic doesn't mean you go to special ed. Just because you got a hearing impairment doesn't mean you go to special ed. Just because you have ADHD, ain't no daddy at home disorder, don't mean you go to special ed.
ADHD, ain't no daddy at home.
If the disability affects learning. So can I ask you a question? Why do we have black children right here in Memphis in a special ed classroom all day long, and they can learn just fine in the regular classroom? Your child's school is breaking the law. Your child's school is intruding on your rights. Let me give you another law. Federal law says even if the child qualifies for special education, they cannot